Hello everyone, welcome back again to this channel. It has been a long time, and in today's session I want us to look at a logbook for students pursuing pharmacy, that's majorly certificate and diploma in pharmacy in my country, and that is the Republic of Uganda. So there are a number of things that you need to put into consideration a student needs to know, and the main focus of this discussion today is going to zero on that. Okay, so this you find that I've tried to scan this just to help the trainees understand the logbook. However, the logbook has a lot of information on its preliminary pages. However, most times, like maybe students are not paying attention to it. I am just here to explain what is in the book, not like bringing in new things. I'm just going to explain what is there in the book. So you find that the body that is in charge or responsible for the allied health professionals in the country is the Uganda Allied Health Examination Board. That's why you find that the first page of the book is like this. So when we look at the second page, you find that it gives us the vision, it also gives us the mission, and this is how it is, and the values. Okay, so when we move forward, we see that the number of things that come forward now. Okay, so you find that talks about the Ministry of Education, and this is like introduction to the book and describing majorly the role Ministry of Health, Allied Health. Okay, so you find that that's the second page you can find in your book, and then the other page is when you find acknowledgement, whereby you find this your head. Okay, Uganda Allied Health Examination Board wishes to sincerely acknowledge the value of contribution of the following institutions and organizations to the development of the logbook. That's Ministry of Education and Sports developed this book, Ministry of Health participated in developing the book, and also we have Uganda Allied Health Professional Council participated in developing the book, and we have pharmacy training institutions also have participated in developing the book. Okay, so as you move on, the abbreviations that you may find inside the book, and you need, or students need to understand them. So you find that they are in specific parts of the book, and these are some of the abbreviations. I'm not going to go through them just for the matter of time, so that we beat the time. Yeah. So I will move forward to introduction. So you find that the Ministry of Education and Sports has revised the curriculum for diploma in pharmacy as well as the teacher's guide to make it competence-based assessment. Okay, to further consolidate these interventions, this field placement logbook has been developed to monitor acquisition of competence during placement. Since the main aim is competence-based, so there should also be need to monitor the acquisition of that competence. So in line with the competence-based curriculum, preparing pharmacy students for the tasks they are expected to perform upon completion of their training requires inclusion of field placements. That's why you guys need to go for placement, okay, during their period of study. So you find that field placement is training of students that goes beyond lecture rooms and laboratories. Okay, you have studied in class those different course units, and you need to put in practice those different course units, so that you are like exposed to the practical bit of it in the field with the patients. Okay, yeah, so this training environment may include, among others, health facilities. Okay, it can include a community pharmacy as well as a pharmaceutical industry. So these sites provide an opportunity for students to acquire real life pharmaceutical practice experience or prerequisite exposure. So you find that the content of this logbook predominantly includes practical areas and exposure experiences that cannot be acquired within the training institution environment. So you find that the logbook will therefore be used to record practical experience, exposure, and assessment thereof. While at placement site within the duration of the program, this logbook will be implemented in relation to the curriculum of the diploma in pharmacy. So you find that your book is designed in a way that it covers all areas in your curriculum. When you look at maybe in your first year, the course units you're doing there, when you're looking at the course units you're doing in second semester of your first year, you find that there is primary healthcare. And we have a section in the book which deals with primary healthcare. Okay, so when you move to second year, you will also have other course units introduced to you according to the curriculum, where you have pharmacy practice. So you find that pharmacy practice is incorporated in the curriculum and should be in position to appreciate which area of the curriculum is for pharmacy practice 1 that I do in my second semester of second year. If you're in position to appreciate that, you find that the book becomes easier for you to understand and a number of things. So what is the purpose of the logbook? To record and keep track of the students' performance and achievements in the activities specified for the achievement of the competence in specific pharmacy practice experience during field placements under supervision. You have to be supervised, and there are two people who are basically going to supervise you. One is the preceptor. The preceptor is the person you're going to find at the facility, working in that facility, who is going to be mentoring you, who is going to be guiding you on how you have to do whatever the tasks are guided by the logbook. However, also this logbook is guided by your curriculum. Yeah. So you find that there will be a preceptor or that person at the site mentoring you. And then there also will be academic supervisor who is following up with you to see how far you're going with the placement. And also we see that there should be a feedback and assessment tools to the students, training institutions and stakeholders. So the feedback assessment tool, that's why we require you always to come with your reports. It enables us to assess how you have been there. So also the facility has to recommend a report to see how you guys have been working at the facility. So you find that also another purpose of the book is to capture information during students' placement that can be used in different beneficiaries for decision making and action. Promote and strengthen linkage between training institutions and also placement sites. Yeah, so you find that the training institution is able to know what happens in the field when they look at the book, how you have been assessed. It's like also another evidence. Yeah. So what are the general rules and regulations on placement? During the placement, the students are required to adhere to all regulations and procedures related to placement. On reporting, each student will be required to avail the following to the preceptor: a copy of the student identification card, that's your school identification card, and then a copy of approved program of Plan C. Okay, like your approved program, are you doing a certificate in pharmacy, are you doing a bachelor's in pharmacy, and then a student consent form. From this book, we are going to have a consent form at the back. We are going to see it in a few minutes from now. You'll appreciate how it looks like. So you need to always have a copy of a consent form to give to your placement preceptor. You need your student identification card. They have to be sure which student they are dealing with and where you're coming from, which facility, which institution are you coming from. So failure to meet the minimum of the field placement training requirements will automatically disqualify the student from sitting their final UAHEB examinations. So assessments to sites, okay, to ensure that each student placement fulfills the training requirements, scheduling of sites shall be made by the head of program or head of pharmacy program based on the preceptor and or site available and of convenience or other administrative reasons. Students are not allowed to change placement sites without the consent of the head of program or head of pharmacy program. So any student switching placement sites without the permission of the health or head of pharmacy will receive a grade of F. Okay, and all of us can appreciate what grade F really implies. So So placement changes. Placement changes may be requested resulting from unforeseen circumstances. Maybe the concerned preceptor or the student shall be required to contact the head of program or pharmacy program immediately so that they are helped or worked upon. Okay, so let's move forward. Don't get bored. You need to know this information. Most of the times we have messed up just because we don't read the preliminary pages. So here today I'm taking you through these preliminary pages one at a time. Okay, so they may be reassigned to other preceptors as soon as possible. Academic supervisor based on a number of reasons, including but not limited to students' performance. Okay, so these academic supervisors are not assigned to students based on their performance in class. So they have to be assigned based on a specific number of reasons apart from their performance. Okay, so attendance guidelines. A student must report to the field placement site on the stipulated date. Students are expected to schedule placement activities with the preceptor on the first day of placement. So on your first day of placement, you need to schedule with the preceptor. Like maybe he's going to divide you in groups in case the numbers are many. And then also it's going to give you activities like the work plan of how you're going to move that period that you're going to be in the field. When are you going to which department in the hospital? What are you doing on when? What are they exposing you on what time? Okay, there is always need to have this schedule plan so that you don't repeat doing the same thing over and over, and because you need to get exposed to a number of things based on your curriculum. Students are required to spend a minimum of 8 hours per day as at the placement sites participating in related activities, a minimum of 8 hours per day. Some of us are going there only for 5 hours and we move away. But the book is guiding us that you have to take a minimum of 8 hours in that placement site. Then attendance at all placement sites. Okay, attendance at all placement sites, placement program meetings, and then career-related occasions and review sessions are mandatory for you. Okay, in case there is any meetings that maybe continuous professional learning or meetings that that facility holds, you are also mandatory or required to attend them. Absence from placement meetings or events requires a student to fill and submit absentee forms for approval. So there is absentee form at the end or among the last pages, just in case you are absent in the placement site and you have a reason, you have to sign on it and it has to be approved by the placement preceptor. Absenteeism, permissible absence falls into 3 categories. For you to be absent, these are some of the areas. 1. Medical necessity refers to unpredictable or serious illness of a student or of an immediate family member. Then death of a family member, including a spouse, a child, or other immediate family members, a parent, a grandparent, and siblings. Sometimes you have to go and attend to them. Okay, and then we have these other unforeseen circumstances that you will read at your free time. Just let's try to save some time. Yeah. All right. So what are the procedures for notification and makeup? Then we have here a student who requires permissible absenteeism must complete the student's absenteeism form and it has to be attached. Okay, and then a student who misses up to 3 days of placement shall be required to make up that time. All right, so you have to make up for the time that you're always not there. Then regardless of the time off for any reason, students are required to complete all their tasks of placement. Just in case maybe you are going home because you are sick, you have to compensate for that time. Okay, and you should have attended 75% of your placement site arrangement. Yeah, so Placement dismissal guidelines. The following may result in dismissal of a student from placement. Failure to adhere to the placement site policies and procedures leads to dismissal. Failure to adhere to placement programs and procedures also leads to dismissal. Persistent and unacceptable performance in the placement site, any action which is repetitive, or like every time you're doing that activity, they're trying to correct you, and then you're not following up with the preceptor, you're not respecting them, and they have a right to dismiss you from the placement site. Okay. Unauthorized removal of any medicines, books, charts. Like if you're going there, you're removing charts, maybe to take to your hostels, you're removing books, you're removing medicines. Okay, that's actually fraud. Like you're stealing the medicines, and yet people need those medicines. So that leads to dismissal of a student from the placement site. Okay. So up next, this continues. How about the dressing code? How do you have to dress when you're in the placement or when you're in for placement? All students must wear a clean white laundried professional coat. Okay, during, like, you have to be smart and should wear that professional coat that every school always gives you. In addition, a student must have a name badge. Okay, you should have your name printed on that, or you should have a name tag. All right, so that's why when you go to the health facilities, all those clinical coats, all the, you may call them lab coats, but they are called clinical gowns, all of them have names on them. Okay, whether it is a nurse uniform, there is a name always in that. So you find that there is need for that identification. A patient that you're managing has to identify who is working on them, even if without you introducing yourself to them, in case they are in position to read and write. Okay, so this is how you're required. And then you should also have institution identification one at all times during the placement. So what about identification cards? Students are required to carry identification cards for the purpose of identification. Okay, components of the logbook. What are the components that we have in the logbook? So you find that our logbook is divided into sections. That is general information, where we shall have a session where we are going to see field placement or field preceptor, the student section, and then academic supervisor section, and the list of forms to be used during placements that we always find at the back of the book. How do we use the book then? Filling the book or logbook. Provisions have been made for the following categories of people to fill the logbook. This includes field preceptors, students, academic supervisors, and heads of program. And then appropriate filling of the book will make it highly valuable. It makes it a highly valuable document. Okay. So what are the contents of the logbook? Like they have just given us the general information, which has a field preceptor, which has a student section, and then that has the supervisor or academic supervisor. So the content to be filled in by the different persons vary based on the need and the purpose of the information. So when we look at the field preceptor session, what should a field preceptor do? So you find that a field preceptors are expected to fill in their names. You as a student is not required to fill in the name of the preceptor. The preceptor is required to always fill his name or her name, put the date, and then sign, and then put their contact, and should be in position to score you and put remarks, okay, as they assess the student. So what are these ways of assessing? You find that there is that initial assessment, there is the mid assessment, and final assessments. So all these three assessments or trials are provided for each competence areas. We are going to see what are those competence areas. It is recommended that the initial assessment be undertaken after some observation interaction with the students rather than at the time the student first gets to the field placement site. Okay, these have to be given to you earlier and explained to you. So the preceptor will not rate competence, like not competences that are only observed for exposure. Preceptor's remarks will therefore be based on the information from the student section. Okay, so you as a student, you need to first fill your student section before they like award you or they score you or they give you remarks. Okay, alongside each activity, provision is made for the preceptor's assessment based on the observation of how well a student has performed. So this is how you can be scored and the remarks that they can put there. If, for example, you are given 1, the remark or the remark they have to put there is poor. Okay, and then if you are awarded 2, the remark they have to put is fair, and then 3 goes for good, 4 goes for very good, and then 5 for excellent. Okay, then about the student area, how do you feel that the student is expected to document as applicable key competence areas, what was observed, what was the exposure they got during the placement, what are the activities they did, and then what are the lessons they learned, and then what are the suggestions or recommendations that they have to give. For the competence area which a student only observes or is exposed to, the student shall generate a report and write up. Okay, for those different areas you're going to be exposed to, maybe primary health care, you need to write a report, or you can call it a write up. At the end of the placement period, the post-full placement report will be generated and submitted to the head of pharmacy program not later than 4 weeks after placement. Okay, not later than 4 weeks after placement, you should have handed in your your report. Okay, academic supervisor is expected to make remarks on what? Let's keep going. Academic is expected on the entire placement process in relation with a full preceptor, sign, date, and provided for this logbook. The head of program shall endorse the logbook at the conclusion of the placement period to make it authentic. Any logbook without the signature of the head of program in that specific institution is not authentic. Okay, and if not authentic, I think a student may have to score F. Okay, because how come the academic or maybe the head of program has not approved your book. Okay, then storage, how do you store, you as a student, how do you store the book? Kindly take your time and read that. Falsification of signatures. Yes, let's come here. Falsification of signatures as an act of forgery. Any suspicion of falsification of signatures within the logbook will be investigated by the examination body and take falsification of signatures very seriously, such as if forgery is proven at any time, even when you left the training, the student's academic papers will be cancelled. That's how serious it can be. And registration with Allied Health Professional Council will also be revoked. Okay, so any forgery of signatures, one forgery of signature is equivalent to 100 forgeries. So in case you identified that the signature is forged, that is already a big issue, which leads to you, even if you are already practicing in the field, you find that your papers are going to be what? Are going to be withdrawn from you. Allied Health Professional Council will withdraw that from you. It is the responsibility of the students that field preceptors sign the logbook as stipulated. Please do not sign for these preceptors. They are required to write their names, put their contacts, put the dates, and sign and also score you. Okay, don't score yourself, because in case it is recognized that the handwritings are different, okay, and there is evidence that they are different, so that is already a sign of forgery. Okay, and then we see that if gross insufficiencies present persistently at the review of the student's logbook, he or she may be unable to sit the final examination. So this decision will be made on a case-by-case review. Every book has to be reviewed and then they make a final decision on it. So what is the criteria for selection of a field placement site? So in the beginning, we talked about a community pharmacy, a health facility. So this is like the guideline of how you can choose, or how the head of program in your institution can choose where you guys have to be placed, or students have to be placed. So we find that a community pharmacy should be a registered pharmaceutical outlet, okay, should be registered with the National Drug Authority. Eh? Availability of professional personnel, the people working there, are they professional to be in position to train you while you're there? And then storage and dispensing unit should also be present in that pharmaceutical outlet. Capacity to handle specific number of students during the placement should have the capacity to handle. What if it is a health facility? You find that a hospital or health center for availability, okay, like this is what's required, should be a hospital or a health center for. As in this country, this is how our referral systems operate. We have a hospital and health centers, and then they're also graded into different numbers, maybe health, starting from village health teams, health center 2s, health center 3s, health center 4. So you are required to be placed in a hospital or a health center 4. Availability of a professional personnel in that facility, and then the capacity to handle specific number of students. Is the facility capable to handle? What if it is a pharmaceutical industry? Should be a legal entity, should be a recognized entity. Availability of a professional personnel in that entity, and then the capacity to handle specific number of what? The students. And then what is the criteria of selecting preceptors? Must be a registered practitioner with at least 2 years of working experience, must have an up-to-date practicing license where applicable, must be of good reputation, and then should possess and exhibit the qualities of a trainer, and then must be willing to mentor the students, must be willing to participate in placement activities, and also must be willing to complete placement assessments. What is the responsibility of those stakeholders? When we look at field preceptor, is required to orient students during placement, allocate students to different departments, generate placement schedules, guide and coach the students, assess students and appropriately fill the book, and then give time feedback to the students and the training institution about how the field placement went. Academic supervisor make a prior visit to the placement site, introduce and brief field placement preceptors on how to use the book, okay? Verify information in the logbook with the preceptor, fill the logbook, and then give timely feedbacks to the students. What about head of program pharmacy? Select placement site, fix the period for placement, contact preceptor prior to the start of placement, allocate students to placement sites, brief the academic supervisors, implement issues in Ministry of Health, okay, and then facilitate the MOUs, memorandum of understanding that a facility has with the institution, yeah, then verify the completeness and authenticity of the information entered in the book, make final remarks, and then endorse the book. What about you as a student? Report for duty as stipulated in the field placement site. Keep safe custody of the logbook and present it to the preceptor at all times before start of any activities. Photocopy each completed and signed page and keep them safe. Fill each section of the logbook as required. Generate and submit a field placement report for marking. Okay? Generate and submit a field placement report for marking. Submit completed field placement logbook to the head of program pharmacy. Then what are the potential beneficiaries of the book? You can have that time to read or go through that. Okay, sorry about this, guys. Sorry, please. Sorry, apologize for that. Okay, so we looked at how you are going to be assessed. They said when you're given one that's poor, and when should a student qualify to get poor? When a student has failed to do the task, or a student cannot work alone, so you can't score the student as poor. When a student has completed a quarter of the task, you can score the student 2 or requires much support to do that task. When a student has completed a half of the task and then requires moderate support, you give them 3. When they complete 3/4 of the tasks you've given them, you can give them very good. And then excellent, task excellently done and then completed. Okay? When they have excellently done it and completed it, you give them that. So when should initial assessment be filled? This shall be done after the student has been taken into these different guidelines throughout some induction and practice. It is hoped that a student too will have adjusted to the working environment during that time. So your initial assessment should be maybe your first 2 weeks of your placement, okay, is when they should sign the initial assessment. Then your mid assessment shall be done in the midpoint of the field placement, and then final assessment shall be conducted at the end of the attachment period. So assessment of field activities that are observed or exposure, Then let's look at considerations. We are about to end this session so that we start a new one because we are taking a longer time. Considerations in guiding field placement. So attendance, attend at least 75% of the time allocated for the field placement. Coverage. Coverage of the required areas in the logbook should be 100%. Don't submit your book for assessment when your coverage in the book is like, I can say, like maybe 50% or maybe 10%. Some of you are handing the book which is empty. Okay, you've not done anything in the field. The preceptor has not signed. You yourself, you've not signed. Academic supervisor has not signed. So you find that it is an incomplete book. All those areas should be signed. Final field assessment score. The total of the score in the final assessment shall be derived and the percentage score computed based on the maximum score. Then what are the ethical conducts that you are expected to exhibit while there? You see that students are expected to conduct themselves in a manner that is consistent with the expected ethical code of conduct during the entire time they are at the placement site. Okay, so I can say this marks the end of our first logbook session. We are coming back to this session and I want to come back when you guys are fresh. So I'm going to pause a bit and then we get back. Thank you so much for listening. If you came this far listening to this audio, I really appreciate your time and I appreciate that you are giving your time to understanding and learning more about the book. That was briefly what you can find in your preliminary pages. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for the second part of the logbook.